Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you guys about Trump's big, beautiful bill and some of the opposition coming in from Republicans that are crying that they don't support it because it's going to raise the debt by some $4 or $5 trillion. Okay, so complete BS. I think they've got ulterior motivations. Okay, the reason why I say it's BS is the national debt is going up by $1 trillion every 3 months just because of the interest that's compounding. Okay, so every 3 months the debt goes up by $1 trillion, which means annualized the debt is going to go up by $4 trillion annually because of the interest. Okay, not because of any of the extra stuff that might be in that bill. So the problem here is not so much what the bill is trying to do. The problem is the debt that has already accumulated and is continuing to add interest. Okay, so right now it's like every 3 months it adds $1 trillion. Okay, eventually as that debt grows, right, it's going to add $1 trillion every 2 months, and then eventually it's going to be $1 trillion every month. And then eventually it will be like $1 trillion every 2 weeks, and then every 1 week. Okay, that's the nature of compounding interest. Okay, so there's nothing that anybody can do right now to stop the debt by going up $4 trillion by with over, let's say, a 12-month period, because of the interest that's being added to it. Okay, so I mean this. Trying to, at this point in the game, come out and say that they're against it because they don't want to increase the debt is BS. I mean, if there was a time to do that, it was a long time ago. Okay, at the point where it is right now, it's going to add $4 trillion in interest, right, to the debt by by the end of the year or over 12 months. Okay, so that's the thing that and I'm not going to say that they don't understand it, because I believe that they do understand it. I think that they're smart enough to understand this, right? They've got people that understand economics explaining this stuff to them, but they're just using this as a BS excuse. Now, the thing with the national debt, you got to ask yourself, okay, great, the national debt is up to whatever, $36 trillion. Who do we owe this money to? Nobody. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. $1 trillion is an astronomical number. Okay, to put it into context, a million seconds is about a week. A billion seconds is 31 years. Okay, a trillion seconds is 31,000 years. Okay, so this is an astronomical number. If you took $100 bills and you tried to stack them on top of each other, they would go all the way into outer space. Okay, so there's nobody that the government can actually borrow $1 trillion from, because nobody has $1 trillion to give to the government. Okay, and there's nobody that the government actually owes $1 trillion to, or $35 trillion for that sake. Okay, so this is a bookkeeping number, right? It is strictly a bookkeeping number that keeps track of the money dilution. Okay, so like you take something that you take a pie, right? You take one pie. You cut it in half, right? Now you've got two pieces, right? You got two pieces. You still have one pie, okay? You cut it into four, right? Now you got four pieces, right? It didn't increase the amount of pie. You just got four small pieces. You cut that into eighths, all right? Now you got 8 pieces. The overall pie is the same size, okay? So the same thing happens with money dilution, right? What they do is every time they print up more money, what they're really doing is they're diluting the existing money. So a lot of times these politicians say, oh, future generations are going to have to pay it back. No, they're not going to have to pay it back in the future. We're paying for it now through money dilution, right? Because what's happening is every time the government prints up money, okay, what they're doing is they're reducing the value of the savings that we have, okay? So that's the nature of money dilution. So and here's the thing: anytime the government reduces the buying power of your money, right, through some action, any action, they have taxed you. So when they increase the debt, okay, they're diluting our money, so they are taxing us now through money dilution, not at some point in the future. Okay, so that poor excuse needs to go away. Money is created two ways: created in the public sector, it's created in the private sector. In the private sector, what happens is you go and you get a mortgage, right? You give the bank a deed, and then they use that deed. Basically, they use your house, right, or a piece of property as an asset to create the money that they create. So the banks create money every time you take a mortgage. Now, the issue is that they don't create the interest part. They only create the principal part. So you got to pay back the principal plus the interest. So, for example, just as an example, if you've got everybody this year takes out a mortgage for $200,000, well, everybody has to pay back $300,000, right? The bank only created $200,000 for each person, but now each person has to has to pay back $300,000. So there's not enough money in existence. So the current generation of borrowers depends on next year, the future generation of borrowers to come in and create more money, so there'll be enough money in circulation so that they can pay back their the principal plus interest. Okay. Now there's a limit as to how much money we can create because we have to put up real assets. Okay. So there's a limit on us. There's not a limit on the government, because the government, when they create money, they're doing the same thing, right? The only difference is that they don't have to actually put up an asset. They're just putting up this concept of debt, right? They're saying that they're creating this idea of debt. So when we borrow money, the debt is real because we actually have to pay it back, the principal plus the interest. And in the private sector, it's backed by an asset. So it makes no difference whether you give the bank a house, a car, or a pile of gold, right? If you've got a gold mine, right, and you give the bank gold, they take possession of that gold, and now they create money. So in the private sector, it is an asset-based system. Okay. The problem is that we share the same monetary system with the government. The government doesn't actually put up an asset to create money. They just put up this. They have this concept of debt. Okay. That they're never going to pay back. So on the government side, all they are doing is diluting the money, reducing the value through inflation. Okay. So one more thing I wanted to add. In the private sector, when we borrow money, okay, in order for us to pay it back, we're essentially depending on other people of the same size as us to come in the next generation and create money, so that we'll have, the money will be available to pay back the interest plus the principal. Okay. On the government side, the government has become such a huge component of the debt that they created that there's nobody of the same size as the federal government to come in and essentially keep the Ponzi scheme going. So that's the reason why the government has to keep financing this Ponzi scheme themselves. When these Republican politicians say, "Oh, the future generations are going to have to pay back," no, they're not, because it's not real debt. Okay, nobody owes. The government doesn't owe anybody $35 trillion. Okay, now a small portion of that might be the bonds and the debt that's actually issued to people, but the vast majority of it it's just a bookkeeping thing. It's a balance sheet item to keep track of the money dilution. Okay, so complete BS on the Republicans that are trying to stop Trump's agenda, saying that it's going to increase the budget deficit. The budget deficit is, the interest alone is now an additional $4 trillion every year, and it's soon going to, increase to the point where it's, maybe in a couple of years it'll be $10 trillion a year. Eventually it'll be $50 trillion a year. It's going to keep increasing. Okay. The best thing that they can do is just write it off, man. We don't actually owe this debt to anybody. Okay. It just represents how much the money has been diluted. So they can just write it off and just do away with those bullshit. It's not like anybody's going to go broke because the government writes off this debt, because they don't actually owe it to anybody. Okay, it's a bookkeeping item. So I just wanted to put that out there because this is a bullshit excuse. This is just Republicans trying to stop Trump's agenda. And we can't stand for it. So we can't let this happen. I mean, yeah, this bookkeeping thing should be corrected, but it should not be corrected at the expense of Trump's agenda. Okay, we need to make clear to Republicans that we voted for Trump's agenda, not for the Republican Party. Okay, so they better understand that and get behind this agenda and get it done, and not use these BS excuses about the national debt and all this other shit that they're saying, because like I said, the national debt is going up $4 trillion a year, just because of the interest that's compounding, and it's going to keep going up more and more at an ever increasing rate.